You're going to be surprised when you hear my story. I'm a 45-year-old woman who's been married for 20 years. But over time, the routine of marriage started to feel repetitive. I found myself wanting something new, something exciting, but without my husband finding out. So I began connecting with people he didn't know, looking for safe ways to explore a different side of myself. To meet new people more easily, I started using Instagram and some chat apps. I'd reach out to a few people I found interesting, though most of them reminded me of the risks involved since I was married. Still, I'd spend a lot of time scrolling through Instagram whenever my husband was out. One day, after my husband left for work early in the morning, I was browsing Instagram and happened to come across a profile that caught my eye. It was my husband's friend, John. I got caught up scrolling through his photos, even looking at ones from years ago. Without realizing it, I accidentally liked a photo he had posted 5 years back. An hour later, a message popped up from him saying hello. I was surprised, but also a bit excited. When I saw John's message, my heart skipped a beat. I'd thought he was charismatic when we first met, but I'd set those thoughts aside. Now, by a twist of fate, I had the chance to reconnect. He wrote, "Hey, long time no see. Looks like you've been checking out some old photos." Referencing the accidental like, this message felt like an opportunity for something different and brought a bit of spark back into my routine. I paused before replying, but then I typed, "Yeah, that's an old photo. How have you been, John?" His response came quickly. "I'm good, thanks. It's been a while since we last caught up. What's new with you?" At that moment, it felt like a fresh chapter was opening up in my life, giving me a space to share a side of myself that no one else really knew. After a brief chat, John's way of communicating drew me in even more. He was starting to attract me not just physically, but mentally as well. I realized the boundaries we had set for ourselves were becoming increasingly blurry. "How about grabbing a coffee?" I typed, surprised by my own courage. John replied positively within minutes. "Why not? We could meet up later this evening. Does that work for you?" As my heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear, I thought about what to do next. My husband was out, and meeting John could be a chance to explore the desires buried deep within my soul. "Sure, that sounds great," I replied, eagerly awaiting the evening. As the day went on, my excitement and guilt intertwined, but all I could think about was living in the moment. As the time for our meeting approached, I felt like I was about to step into another world. When the evening came, I walked toward our meeting spot with my heart pounding. Thinking about John waiting for me, numerous scenarios played out in my mind, but they all shared one common point. This meeting would lead me on a new journey. When I arrived at the meeting spot, it was a cool but refreshing evening. My mind was racing with thoughts as I imagined John waiting there. I scanned the crowd, trying to picture how he would look. Just a few steps in, I spotted his distinctive silhouette. He stood tall and charismatic, holding a coffee cup in his hand. When our eyes met, his smile put me at ease. "Hey, it's been a while. Do you remember me?" he said with a hint of playful sarcasm. "Of course," I replied, my voice a bit shy. "How could I forget? I just checked out your photos." We both laughed as we ordered our coffees. At first, our meeting felt like a casual catch-up between friends, but the excitement inside me grew with each passing second, making me want to know him even more. Once we grabbed our coffees and sat at an outdoor table, John's eyes sparkled. "I'm curious about what you've been up to lately. How's married life treating you?" he asked. His question made me think. It felt like sharing the boredom of my daily life with him would lighten my burden. Honestly, it hasn't been all that exciting lately. Everything's become so routine. I want to try different things, but I'm scared, I admitted. John nodded, listening intently. "Don't be afraid. Sometimes you have to take risks to live life, especially if you want something." His brave words ignited a fire inside me. My heart raced as I took a deep breath to gather my courage. "So, have you experienced anything like that?" I asked. A mysterious smile flickered across John's face, making him even more intriguing. There have been pivotal moments in my life, but I always felt like I needed to be in the right place at the right time. Sometimes chasing something forbidden can be more exciting. Hearing that sent a wave of thrill through me. Did John share the same feelings as I did? Maybe you're right. I feel lost in this regard, I said. He looked at me carefully and said, I have a suggestion for you. Why don't we try something together? Life is short. We should have fun. At that moment, all my boundaries started to crumble. John's courage was drawing me in even more. What kind of things are you talking about? I asked, my voice trembling. John pointed at the coffee cup on the table. Something a bit more fun. Going out on dates or exploring new places. Maybe stepping into these new adventures together. After a brief pause, I was determined to make an exciting decision. Why not? Let's dive into a new adventure. The moment I heard John's proposal, excitement surged within me. This was no longer just an ordinary meeting. It was a chance to turn a new page in my life. Let's dive into a new adventure, I said, and I could see the sparkle in John's eyes brighten even more. That's awesome. As the first step, I'm going to show you a fun place. One of the best bars in the city, John said, smiling. We'll feel more at ease there. After we finished our coffees, we left the meeting spot under John's lead. As we walked, I felt a mix of confusion and relief in my heart. The guilt of cheating on my husband clashed with the excitement I felt being with John, but at that moment, I just wanted to enjoy the here and now. As we approached the bar, I saw John step inside with his hands in his pockets. The place was bustling with an energetic vibe. Music filled the air, encouraging people to dance, and laughter and conversations echoed from every corner. This place is amazing, I said as we entered. John responded with a kind smile. It's always a fun time here. Come on, let's dance a little. As the rhythm of the music flowed through me, I started dancing next to John. Our bodies moved in harmony with the beat, and the excitement in my heart kept growing. In that moment, a wave of happiness washed over me like I had never felt before. John's gaze while dancing only fueled the fire of passion inside me. While we danced, I could feel the warmth of John's hands on my waist. After a few minutes, I smiled and leaned closer to him. I think we're having a great time tonight, I said, excitement shining in my eyes. This is just the beginning, John replied, tilting his head slightly. Sometimes you have to take risks in life, right? His words sparked even more courage within me. At that moment, I wanted to enjoy my place next to John even more. Maybe you're right. Trying something fun sounds great, I said, feeling a bit braver. As we continued dancing, the energy between us intensified. Each touch heightened my excitement, conjuring up different scenarios in my mind. I could sense that John was trying to get to know me better. After a while, John leaned in and said, I want to experience this more with you. If you're up for it, we can take the night to a more special place. His voice drew me further into this adventure. Passion and excitement called out to me from within. Let's do it, I said with determination. I was ready to risk everything to make the night even more unforgettable. We moved away from the crowd inside and slipped out the back door of the bar. As uncertainty and curiosity filled me about the night ahead, I had no idea where this new adventure would lead, but I was ready to explore. As I stepped out the back door of the bar and walked into the night, my excitement reached its peak. John watched me with a smile, trying to savor the uncertainty of this moment. One thing was clear. This adventure was touching the depths of my soul. Just as we began to walk outside, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my husband. Where are you? Is it time to come home? A wave of fear washed over me for a moment, but the excitement that followed quickly overshadowed it. Can we stay out a little longer? I asked John, looking at him. My husband needs me, but I want to finish this night. John locked his gaze onto mine and said, If you want to continue this adventure, we need to make a plan. Maybe we can meet tomorrow night. I had to respond to my husband's message. I'll be out a little longer. I'll be home in half an hour, I typed. After sending the message, I turned back to John. I need to go home today, but let's plan to meet tomorrow, I said. John nodded, smiling. Great, let's set a definite time for tomorrow. How about dinner? That sounds good, I said, feeling a warmth in my heart. Let's meet at 7. Text me the address, okay? Sure, I can't wait, John replied. As my feelings of confusion and excitement grew, I felt the pleasure of getting to know him more. On my way home, my thoughts were clashing in my mind. The monotony of my relationship with my husband paled in comparison to the thrill I experienced with John, making it seem like something was going wrong. When I opened the door, my husband's face was filled with concern. "You're late. Where have you been?" he asked, his voice tense. "I went out with friends, just trying to have some fun," I said, suppressing the guilt inside me. My husband stepped closer. "You need to be more careful. Do you know what you've been up to lately?" "You keep coming home later," he replied. For a moment, I felt the weight of my situation. But memories of the moments I spent with John were swirling in my mind. I just wanted to spend a few hours out. "Why are you so worried?" I asked, a bit defiantly. My husband answered angrily, "I need to trust you, but that's been getting harder lately. You talk about having fun, but I feel like you're doing it without me." The argument escalated. I felt a mix of anger and disappointment, realizing it was getting harder to connect with my husband. What he said seemed dull next to the exhilarating moments I shared with John. We argued late into the night. My communication with my husband was getting weaker. In that moment, I realized that John's offer wasn't just a beginning. The excitement and adventure he presented held much deeper meaning. The emptiness I felt next to my husband was starting to overflow with John's warm smile. As I lay down in the bedroom that night, thoughts of John's smile and our plans for tomorrow were swirling in my mind. I couldn't help but think about the impact this new adventure would have on my life. The argument with my husband had intensified my indecisiveness and the attraction I felt toward John. The next day, as the sun rose, my unease and excitement intertwined. The echoes of the argument with my husband were spinning in my mind, yet I couldn't suppress the thrill of meeting John tomorrow. Throughout the day, even while attending meetings at work, all I could think about was our upcoming date. John's smile and the moments we danced together that night kept replaying in my head. I was constantly imagining new scenarios involving him. I pictured how our meeting would go. Maybe we'd go to another bar or find a place where just the two of us could be alone. When I got home, my husband greeted me with that worried expression again. "You're late. Where have you been?" he asked, his voice tense. "I went out with friends. I needed to have some fun," I said, trying to push down the guilt I felt inside. My husband replied, "I understand that, but you need to be more careful. It's hard to know where you've been lately." For a moment, I felt the weight of my situation, but this time I was more determined. "Okay, you're right, but I'm trying to deal with this. I just need some time," I said with a firmer tone. At that moment, the argument escalated. My husband angrily said, "If you want to change this situation, we need to do something together, but I think you don't want to do that." During the argument, memories of the time I spent with John echoed in my mind. "You need to change how you feel about me. Our life has become monotonous, and I want to change that," I said. In response, my husband closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When the argument ended, my husband's gaze and words left a void inside me. As I went to bed, John's smile was still circling in my mind. That night, I would get closer to John, form a deeper connection with him, and perhaps understand better how fragile my relationship with my husband had become. I was eagerly awaiting my meeting with John the next day. As I went to work in the morning, I saw a message from John on my phone. "I can't wait. We're going to have a great evening," he had written. A warmth spread through me. This evening would mark a new beginning. When night came, I felt free in the dress I wore. I was doing my best to shake off the effects of the argument with my husband. As I stepped outside, I walked toward our meeting place with excitement in my heart. John was there, waiting for me at the door. "Welcome. It's great to see you," he said. In response to his smile, I felt my worries melt away. The thrill of stepping into a new night together filled me. "Thanks for not making me wait," I said as I walked up to him. I could feel the attraction between us growing even stronger. As we set off together, the excitement within me intensified with John walking beside me. The darkness of the night felt like a secret between us. John told me he had chosen a beautiful place to take me. He had found a quiet, serene spot outside the city. As we drove, I appreciated the time we would spend together. My tension seemed to disappear whenever I was with John. Every moment felt more special because I was sharing it with him. The place we were going to was by a small lake outside the city. In the midst of nature, a gazebo decorated with lights was set up for dinner. "I picked this place just for you. I hope you like it," John said, smiling at me. He could see the excitement in my eyes. "This is wonderful. Thank you for thinking of this," I said, feeling the happiness inside me. The moon's reflection shimmered on the calm surface of the lake, creating a magical atmosphere. The inside of the place was lit by candlelight. We sat outside by the lake. John offered me a glass of wine. "Let's raise a toast to new beginnings," he said. I lifted my glass, and in that moment I felt the bond between us strengthen. As we sipped our wine, we began sharing stories about our lives, dreams, and maybe even our secrets. John's stories captivated me. I realized I had forgotten all the tension between me and my husband during our conversations. This was truly a different experience for me. After a while, John said, "You know, I feel so lucky to have met you." In that moment, I felt a warmth in my heart. "I'm really happy to have met you too," I replied, looking into his eyes. As the night deepened, the silence of nature made our conversations echo even deeper. Suddenly, John moved even closer to me. "Maybe we can make this moment even more special here," he said, his voice carrying a certain charm. My heart raced as I leaned closer to him. Yes, we were alone tonight, far from all responsibilities. The attraction inside me pulled me even closer to him. At that moment, when I looked into John's face, I wanted to capture that magical moment. "You know, what I feel for you is very deep. You've brought a different color, a different excitement into my life," I said, allowing my feelings to come to the surface. John locked his gaze onto mine. "I feel the same way about you. I'm excited to spend this night together," he said, pulling me even closer. In that moment, I found a peace I had never felt before in my life. This moment, where we belonged only to each other, would become one of the most unforgettable moments of my life. As I felt the depth in John's eyes, my emotions intensified even more. The electricity between us was pulling us together. In that moment, I decided to leave all the uncertainties and troubles in my life behind. With John, I felt free and happy. Sometimes people want to turn the page in their lives. "Being with you feels like the most beautiful way to open that new chapter," I said. These words strengthened the bond between us even further. John smiled and took my hand. "Sharing this with you is very special for me. I want to see this night as a new beginning in our lives," he said. At that moment, the excitement of this new beginning intoxicated me. We both fell silent for a moment, savoring the tranquility of the lake and the gentle breeze. Then John leaned his face closer to mine. "Maybe we should explore this together more deeply," he said, his voice firm. My heart raced. "I understand what you mean," I replied, feeling a mix of fear and anticipation. But I wanted to experience this moment. The thrill I felt made this special time with John even more meaningful. At that moment, John cupped my cheeks in his hands, looking deeply into my eyes. "I'm so happy to feel this, but I also know the chaos these feelings could bring into our lives," he said. For a moment, I thought, were the problems in my marriage standing in the way of this new and exciting bond with John? But tonight, the peace I felt with John was worth everything. "Maybe we should live life a little more boldly. Let's spend this night together and not worry about what happens in the morning," I said, gathering my courage. John smiled and nodded. "I'm glad to hear that. Let's set the past aside and live in the moment," he said. At that moment, we were filled with the feeling of belonging only to each other. John pulled me closer, and we embraced. The intense attraction we would both felt sparked something in my heart. Then John slowly leaned in, and we shared our first kiss. In that moment, time stood still, and it felt like only the two of us existed. As the night went on, the bond we felt deepened even more. Our passions for each other made me forget the problems from the past. It felt like a new chapter replacing the uncertainties in my life. When morning came, the sky was waking up to a new day. The effects of the argument with my husband had faded, and the night I spent with John felt like the beginning of something new. I had made up my mind. No matter what happened in my life, I wanted to give this new relationship a try. I knew my husband would be waiting for me when I got home, but the peace inside me gave me the feeling that I could handle anything. The night I spent with John marked the start of a whole new era in my life. And maybe with this experience that I would never forget, I would take a bold step toward a brighter future. Every moment I shared with John that night was incredibly special and meaningful to me. Perhaps this new beginning in my life would become a turning point that changed everything. If you're curious about the more detailed and special moments of our relationship, please let me know in the comments. I'm eager to share this adventure with you and discover new experiences together. Remember, each new day can take us to completely different places. If you want to hear more of this story, keep watching and supporting me. In the next episode, I'll share how our experiences deepened, the challenges we faced, and maybe even the real conflicts in my heart. Who knows? Perhaps unexpected surprises await us in our lives.